Now, if a family member goes missing, it can be an anxious and worrying time. And if that disappearance continues over several years, the emotional strain can be compounded by having to deal with the legal problems of any shared finances, mortgages and bills. Well, this week, a new law took effect which will try to ease that bureaucracy. But there are calls for families to be given more legal rights. So how will it work and will it help? Well, I'm joined here in the studio by Monique Tennant. Her sister Jackie from Reading went missing in Mallorca in 2007. She was a holiday rep who went missing whilst walking in the mountains. Thank you so much for coming in, Monique.
Thank you very much.
I know that you spent a lot of the last 7 years searching for your sister. What have those last 7 years been like for you?
Well, words cannot express really frustration, desperation, hopelessness, anxiety, and just a desire to get to the end of this, to know whether she's alive or she's not alive. So it's been heartbreaking. Every day I think about her. I sometimes attempt to call her, and it's quite emotional still for myself and my family.
What do you think has happened to her?
Well, I believe she's still alive. That's the bottom line. Reality and society says she's dead, but in my heart, she's still alive, and that's the way I think of her.
In these 7 years, has there ever been a point at which you have had difficulties with perhaps the legal side or the financial side, which is something to do with your sister?
Oh, it's been difficult from the very beginning. Despite having a police report, approaching the bank to stop the direct debits so she doesn't go overdrawn. I had to apply to the financial ombudsman for a letter to be written, not being able to speak to mortgage companies. It's been very difficult.
Well, let me bring in now Sarah Young, who's a solicitor who has experience of missing persons cases, and she's in our Leeds studio. Sarah, thank you so much for joining us. I'm sure listening to that you've heard similar stories of what families face and the difficulties that they have, particularly financially and legally, as well as, of course, the emotional side.
Absolutely. It's very, very difficult for families in this kind of situation, and the law up until recently hasn't made life easier for those families.
So what happened yesterday when this law took effect that would ease that sort of procedure?
Basically, the new Presumption of Death Act came into force yesterday, and it will help families if they believe that a missing person has died. It will help them to resolve their legal and financial affairs.
But it's interesting that campaigners say that this just doesn't go far enough, and they don't like the presumption of death, do they? They want it to go further.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. There's a charity called Missing People which has been campaigning for years for a guardianship system. And what that would do is enable families, when the person goes missing, to have their affairs managed on the basis and in the hope that they might one day return.
Let me come back to Monique. Would it have helped you in any way if someone could have taken on those legal burdens?
Oh, most definitely. You feel so alone. The bureaucracy, the red tape, Interpol, yes, it would have definitely helped, and guardianship is something that I am really pressing for and working with the Missing People charity as well.
So that would interest you if there was this campaign and if that came to fruition, which of course I think Sarah would agree that that is the case. It would actually probably hopefully come to fruition in the future.
Yeah, one hopes. I mean, there is a Ministry of Justice consultation on the whole idea of guardianship at the moment, which closes on the 18th of November. So anyone who's interested or has relevant feedback should contact the Ministry of Justice.
Okay, Sarah, let me just finish up with Monique here. Despite how the law changes, there is still that moment when a family has to make that very difficult decision that maybe a loved one is not coming back. Have you reached that moment?
No, I haven't.
Will you ever reach that moment?
At this point in time, no. She's still alive for us.
Monique, thank you so much for coming and talk. Sarah Young, thank you so much for explaining all of the legal side of this from the Leeds studio there. Thank you both. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.